Question 2, x minus 8 squared equals 7. To solve this, we'll take the square root of both sides, but when we take the square root of 7, we have to remember that we take plus or minus the square root of 7. We do that so that the square on x minus 8 squared gets canceled out. So we're left with x minus 8 equals plus or minus the square root of 7. Then we add the 8 to both sides, and we get x equals square root of 7 plus 8, or x equals negative square root of 7 plus 8. For question 4, we'll take a different approach. Here, since we have an odd number for the 9x, I'm not going to try to complete the square or create a perfect square or look for a perfect square. So I'm going to set this equal to 0 by subtracting 19 to both sides, and I'll get 9x squared plus 9x minus 18 equals 0. When I look at this, I see that I have a 9, and a negative 18, which means that they have a greatest common factor of 9, which I can pull out, and I'll now have x squared plus x minus 2 equals 0. X squared plus x minus 2 is a factorable trinomial. X plus 2 times x minus 1 equals 0, which means that x equals negative 2 or x equals 1. For our last question, question 7, we have x squared plus 10x plus 25 equals 18. Here, the trinomial on the left has the form of a perfect square trinomial, where the first term is a perfect square, the last term is also a perfect square, and the middle term is twice the product of the square roots, 2 times 5x. So it follows that pattern, which means it can be written as x plus 5 quantity squared equals 18. This is very similar to question 2, where we'll take the square root of both sides and remember the plus or minus. So x plus 5 equals plus or minus the square root of 18. Here's where we get into some early algebra, and we have to rewrite the square root of 18 as the square root of 9 times 2, because within 18 there's a perfect square as one of its factors, the 9. Square root of 9 times 2 could be the square root of 9 times the square root of 2, which is 3 square root of 2. So it's just a different way of writing the square root of 18 that we have to be aware of and look for, simplifying a square root. So now I have x plus 5 equals plus or minus 3 square root of 2, and I'll subtract 5 from both sides, and get x equals 3 root 2 minus 5, or x equals negative 3 root 2 minus 5. And that's it.